Hi there, welcome to Boxing Deep Dive. I'm Lyndon Hosking and great to have you along for another episode of Classic Fights. And we've got a ripper for you tonight. I'll bring in my co-host, Grant Tassie Brown, and Pistol Pete Maniatis. How are we, boys?
No, let's drop the pistol pun. I'm just about to renew my promoter's license, and I want to get. Don't want to get suspended or anything.
We just learned Pete's nickname before we come on air, so from now on, it's not the Macho Man anymore. It's Pistol Pete.
Well, before we've gone on air, we're having a private conversation. I just learned every time I've seen Penny Maniatis dress, it's Versace, it's Gucci, it's Armani, and he tells me the other day he's caught by surprise on a conference call and he wasn't dressed. I said, Peter, you're dressed to the nines like a young John Gotti. I can't believe he said he wasn't dressed for an interview.
Well, good to have you along anyway, boys. And I've got to say how great last week's episode was with Jeff Fennick coming on and doing the Azuma Nelson fight, and the feedback was awesome. We got a lot of positive comments out there. Got to say though, I didn't really have the same amount of luck this week's, boys, because I've got this one, Mike Tyson versus James "Buster" Douglas. I didn't actually have much luck getting Tyson or Douglas on, but what's that, mate?
We haven't got Mike?
Nah, couldn't get him. Couldn't get him on.
Why didn't you tell me? I thought you were sorting it.
Yeah, I couldn't get him on. He's too busy choofing these days.
Dear Mike,
get him on FaceTime.
I don't think he's been seen since the Holyfield fight. I don't think so. We couldn't get hold of him either.
When I call him.
But anyway, guys, so it's Mike Tyson, Buster Douglas. And what a event this was. And look, I'm not sure it was actually a classic fight in the sense of it being, by definition, classic, but probably the most. The biggest upset of all time, or one of them anyway, and it was more infamous and had so many repercussions because of it. But really looking forward to get into this one. So you can see there's the original poster. And Tassie, you only would have been about 13 or 14 at the time. I'm probably thinking when this was on.
What year is it?
1990. This. Oh, I should have said that. It was February 11th,
February
1990.
Yeah.
Not 1990. I'm 12 years old.
Okay, well, and that's the reason why I wanted to have this fight on, because it was a couple of weeks ago, the anniversary of it. But Pete, you're obviously my age, but at the time, what a shock to the world this was. And we talk about other upsets since, but at the time I remember, the whole boxing world was just in shock.
It was, and Tyson was converting from his old trainer to the new trainer. He went to Aaron Snowell, who's a good friend of mine. Aaron's a great guy, but Aaron's a Don King man.
Yeah.
And he trained Tim Witherspoon and Frankie Rendell and a few, Julian Jackson. So, I mean, he was instrumental back then in getting Tyson fit for that fight. And I think that was a time when Tyson just started doing a lot of shortcuts and he was getting away with it. And the demeanour was changing. He was just a fully fledged Don King fighter. Everything about him was Don King, and his image started dropping back too, because he was mucking up, but they were sort of covering things up for him. But it was just leading up to it that it was going to be another walk in the park for Mike Tyson. Leading up to it, and Mr. Honda and Don King co-promoted in Tokyo, and I've actually been to the venue to watch baseball, believe it or not boxing, but. It was one of those moments that if you're watching it live, you felt the earth shake, and you felt like it can't be true. To me, it felt like an earthquake. I couldn't believe my very eyes when Mike went down.
Yeah, well, there was talk, Tassie, just Pete mentioned it just then with the trainer. Kevin Rooney had obviously been his trainer right up till then. He'd been more so than his trainer. He was like his mentor, his minder, his guardian, well, you name it, but he was always there for him, and you could just tell straight away that even in the lead up to it, that Mike's demeanour was different, his body shape had changed, his whole outlook had changed, and you could just tell it wasn't the same Mike Tyson Kevin Rooney.
Yeah, look, Mike Tyson lost a couple of major figures in his life. Number one with Customoto. I mean, I believe if Customoto would have lived longer, Tyson probably would have went on undefeated for longer. And then he lost a guy called Jimmy Jacobs, who was his co-manager.
Yep.
And he was, after Cuss, he was the closest to Mike. I think even closer than the trainers. Very close. He died of cancer, unfortunately. And then Mike, I guess the closest then was Kevin Rooney, but slowly you had Don King pulling him away, Robin Gibbons, all that drama there. He really needed someone in his corner that he could trust. I believe he should have stayed with Rooney because Rooney was the throwback to Casamoto days. But you got to understand, he had all these people dragging him away and all the money and Don King and that. So, like Peter said, he went to his mate, and I'm sure he's a great trainer. But just that whole scene was different. I don't think Mike listened to anyone. I think his training was very limited. We all know what went on in Japan. You know, prostitutes or just girls 10 at a time in his room, up all night, waitresses, you know, cleaners. I think he had just an orgy, and that's just being real. That's his own words. So he wasn't there to. They thought Douglas was just going to fall over, and he got knocked down, as we know. But we know he gets up. But I mean, Douglas lost his mum. Douglas was a man possessed, and it's still the greatest upset I think in boxing history. I mean, Horn Pacquiao's up there as well.
Yeah, well.
But this is, I think this is probably what people talk about is, because no one gave Douglas a chance. They just thought he was just It
was technically a warm-up fight. And Peter, as Tazzy just said then, Douglas lost his mother 23 days before the fight, so that obviously weighed on him very heavily as well. I think he'd been crook as well. I've got a couple of videos that we'll show as we go along that he was apparently crook. But the biggest thing is, like Tazzy said, with the underdog thing, he was a 42-1 underdog. Have you ever seen that ever? And especially the underdog actually getting up?
Yeah, and especially getting up by knockout as well. So it was real surreal leading up to it, because Mike Tyson got dropped by Tony Tubbs in sparring. It was more
Greg
of a temple
Page, actually,
shot.
I think it was.
Was it Page or Tubbs?
No, it was Greg Page.
It was
We've got the video here in a sec.
Greg Page. Okay. It was more of a temple shot, and it kind of shook him, and he went down. But that would not normally happen to Mike. And I've interviewed Aaron Snowell about this. So he basically told me the problem was with Mike back then, they were trying to lock him up to keep him away from everyone in Japan. But he was basically just getting all the cleaners, getting whoever he can get up there, because he wasn't getting out to the people. So he was still doing damage. But that's no excuse anyway. So, I mean, he got caught there, but it's no excuse anyway. It's not really a bad knockout. He's just straight up. But that's not the form from a guy that's sort of invincible to be going into a fight like that. And the fact that, you know, the Japanese people were going there thinking it's going to go one round, it's a massacre, and is it really worth it? And I mean, I've actually spoken to Mr. Honda about it. He reckons he gave Tyson a chance, which I seriously doubt. I said, really? He said, yeah, I gave Tyson, Buster Douglas a chance of beating Tyson. And I said, I said, well, that just sounds a bit. But yeah, anyway, it is what it is, and ended up being a real classic fight, though, didn't it? Because
it was a good
Douglas
fight.
kept his punches straight. He was very accurate. He wasn't intimidated. I mean, Mike hit him a few times, tried to, as Mike does after the bell, and give him a stare. And back then, if Tyson did that, no one ever really retaliated. They copped it, but he was firing back and eyeballing him. So you could see Douglas got some type of indication that he was in the fight early. And you could see that, and he started to grow for Mike.
Yeah, no, he did. And in the lead up to the fight, going into the fight, Tyson was 37-0 with 33 knockouts. Douglas was 29-4-1 with 19 knockouts. And you look at Douglas, he had a couple of good wins going in. I actually saw him struggle. It was a couple of years before this against a guy named David Jaco. I don't know whether you can remember him. He was just a journeyman.
Yeah.
Everyone used to beat him up. And I remember watching him. I think it might have been on one of Tyson's undercards. And he really struggled with him. And I must admit, I remember thinking, how is this guy going to last half a round, let alone one round? But he had a couple of good wins leading into it. He beat Oliver McCall, who, of course, would go on to beat Lennox Lewis for the title, and also Trevor Berbick. So he had two pretty good wins. Yeah.
He quit with TNT Tucker.
Yeah, he did. That
He
was
just
his.
logged that, and that's when his dad said, "I don't want to have anything to do with you."
Yep.
I think it was about the 9th round for no reason. He just didn't want to come out.
10th, I think it
10th
was, yeah,
round,
from
was
memory.
it?
And look,
Tucker was a pretty decent heavyweight.
he was.
As well.
And
Yeah, he
probably
was.
didn't-
But the fact that he just quit, he didn't want to really do it,
Yeah.
and his dad just saying, "I've had enough of you."
Yeah.
Like,
I don't think he quit though, did he? He got stopped, but I don't think he actually quit. I think the referee.
his dad was really upset with him about the whole thing because realistically, the James Buster Douglas we saw the night fight Mike Tyson, he would have beaten any heavyweight in the world.
Yeah.
That night, he destroys everyone. That night, he was fit, he was dedicated, and he was bang on the money.
He was, and on Tyson's behalf, he just was on just an absolute tear. He'd obviously beat Berbick for the world title, for the WBC title that was, followed up against Bone Crusher Smith with a 12-round decision for the WBA. Knocked out former champion Pinklon Thomas in between, and of course
Carl the Truth Williams.
Cleaned up Tucker for the IBF. Then Olympic gold medalist Terrell Biggs. Then it was Larry Holmes. Then it was Tony Tubbs. Then it was Michael Spinks. Then it was Frank Bruno. Then it was Carl Williams. So he was on an absolute tear, this guy. And both of these fights, except one or two, were by knockout and real knockout. So, you know, there's obviously no coincidence as a 42-1 underdog, but just amazing. So let's get into the fight. We'll continue to talk as we go. But Pete, you knocked it on the head, I think, right from the word go in this fight. In that, as I said before, the Douglas that I saw against Jayco and Tucker and a few other guys went through the motions. Yeah, he'd poke the jab out and look okay, and sort of move to the left and move to the right, and really just go through the motions right from the word go. And you'll see this here in a second when the fight starts. He snapped the jab. He was spearing the right hand in. He was, as Tyson was coming more importantly, he wouldn't let him clinch and get him close, which was Tyson's forte. That's where it obviously uppercut and hook and everything. He would push him off to give himself more room. It was just like a man possessed. And I don't know whether it was his mother dying before the fight, whatever, but you could tell right from the word go, Tassie, that Douglas was on.
Yeah, look, you know, he must have just had that self-belief that, I mean, you know, he knew what he's capable of, and I guess having extra motivation and being obviously going through grieving process, and I think he just put everything on the line, and a bit like De La Hoya winning the gold medal at the Olympics for his mother. You know, he made sure that, you know, and he had nothing to lose. I mean, no one expected anything, so he went over there and shocked the world, and you know, got up from a knockdown as well. Some people say, you know, it was a long count, etc. But you know, but he got up from a knockdown, you know, and then and yeah, as I said, couldn't really miss Tyson. I mean, Tyson's head movement wasn't what it was, and like you said, he, you know, in the clinches, you know, he controlled him there, didn't let Tyson work too much. The jab was on point, and the uppercut, which pretty much done the damage later on. But I mean, yeah, like Peter said, I think every fighter has a night. I believe Tyson, when he fought Spinks, you know, probably Tyson, no one beats that Tyson. On this night, no one beats Douglas. This was Douglas's night, and everyone has their one night. Horn for Pacquiao, and you know, so many different fighters. They had that one night when no one can touch them.
And this was the night, because as I said, Pete, and you said yourself before, you know, Douglas, he looked so uninspiring in so many fights, but right from the word go here, he was on. And but you even look at the body language of Tyson walking there. He didn't look menacing, did he? He was just sort of plodding up and down. He didn't want to be there.
He didn't want to be there.
Yeah, but he had the layer on his back. He was sweating up. He was warmed up.
Yeah.
But they had him warmed up. He wasn't going in there cold. Everyone knows Tyson's the best first round starter, second round most dangerous fighter maybe in the history of the sport, you know. And he tried to land big shots, but you see Douglas, he kept his punches straight, he was accurate, and he kept Tyson off with a jab and kicked the right hand back for good measure as well. I mean, no one's ever done that to Tyson. First time he's been wearing punches coming in. It's never happened before. Look at Douglas, he's fighting 2, 3s and 4s and clipping him on the way in. Tyson's starting to throw short a bit. Tyson normally never used to do that. He caused that little indecision. Tyson's normally a lot more than that, because Douglas was throwing, and he was throwing accurately, and he was hitting him too.
Yeah, I think Tassie, you can see right from the word go from the word go there that Tyson was shocked by the fact that Douglas didn't run. He didn't try and tie him up. He didn't try and negate him. He was there to fight. Whereas all those opponents I mentioned earlier, Tyson intimidated every single one of them, even the likes of Holmes and Spinks, and obviously Spinks as well. But you can see there that Douglas is actually he's taking centre ring. I mean, who up to this point had done that against Tyson?
Yeah, 100%, mate. He was there to fight, but the box with pressure. It was nothing stupid, but it was centre ring behind a good left jab, which is the best punch in the game. The right hand, punches in bunches. But he kept that centre ring. He didn't get pushed back to the ropes. He didn't get on the bike and run. He was there to control the centre ring. And he showed, we know Tyson used to bullying people, and he wasn't going to be bullied. I mean, and that's the whole way with Tyson. This actually set up a blueprint with Tyson. If you sort of go in there intimidated and showing too much respect, then he's going to be all over you. And this was the first, obviously, downfall fight. We showed a bit of a blueprint on how to beat Tyson later on. I mean, we know Tyson, there's all the excuses under the sun, and a lot of them are valid. I mean, not training and girls, all that, but that's up to you. If you don't want to train for a fight, if you want to have girls up to early hours of the morning and don't do the right thing, that's on you. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to date the fight. We can say he didn't want to be there. Well, what are you boxing for? I mean, I know he's got so many things in his life going on, Tyson, that we've never dealt with, but it's boxing. Two guys fought. This guy come ready. The other guy probably didn't, and we saw the result.
Yeah, Pete, this is also, I think, and it coincided with the new cornerman where the age where Tyson would throw one punch and clinch, one punch and clinch, one punch and clinch, where against Rooney it was always, 2, 3, 4 punches at a time. And look, that obviously probably had something to do with his conditioning here. You could obviously tell it wasn't right, but you think the guys in his corner were too inexperienced to change the game plan. You'll see later on, even with they didn't have an egg swell or an ice pack, they had a glove filled with water. It was just amateur hour, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a bubble. Yeah, but Aaron Starr was been in the corner with Frankie Rendell when Frankie Rendell defeated Chavez. He was in the corner when, Tim Witherspoon fought home, when Tim Witherspoon won the world title. He's in the corner with Julian Jackson. I mean, this guy's one of the leading trainers. He's Don King's man. Look at these straight punches. Bang, bang, bang. That's the problem. You're getting hit. His eyes starting to swell up because he's not used to getting hit with 10-ounce gloves that hard and that often. And you can't make excuses. No. Nothing to do with the corner. Buster Douglas fought like Muhammad Ali that night with power. Let's call a spade a spade. Yeah. Tyson tried everything. Tried to do his dirty tricks. Tried everything. He was focused. He was menacing. And he just had that snare. He wasn't going to lose that night. And, when he got knocked down, we won't go into it, but we'll wait. He could have dogged it. The old Douglas probably would have sat there thinking, I've done enough. Yep. But he didn't. He got up. So, if it was another 10 seconds, who knows? Tyson might have got home, but it wasn't to be. But just going into these highlights, we could see, Douglas jabbing, always throwing his punches, staying composed, didn't look out of sorts like normal Tyson opponents where they swing their head back and look like deer frozen in headlights. This guy was there with a snail throwing nice strong punches and bruising Tyson's face. Let's call a spade. Look at Tyson's face. He's starting to bruise it up.
But the funny thing was I watched this again in the lead up to this show, and surprisingly though, Tassie, it was actually still a close fight. Douglas had done really, really well, but and especially after this knockdown, you'll see in a second here, but yeah, he did actually look. It was actually a close fight at the time, wasn't it? And you're probably at that stage when he dropped Douglas, you thought he might pull it out of the fire.
Yeah, look, I mean, going with the highlights, it's hard to imagine it was a close fight. Looks like Douglas. There we go, uppercut. Yeah. But he, let's just have a look at the count. It was.
Yeah, I'm not sure I believe the whole long count thing. It was probably there, but there's no way they're going to favour Douglas in a long count, are they? I mean, he's the opponent, so... Yeah. I think the referee either stuffed up or he wasn't watching the the counter
Oh,
properly.
what an
whatever.
uppercut.
That could have been I could have put him out of the fire, that punch. I could have saved him, but wasn't meant to
Mate,
be.
let's be honest. Tyson's got him out in the 8th round. He's supposedly out on his feet. The normal Mike Tyson comes and finishes. Look at Douglas in the 9th. Bang, bang, bang. Guess what? I'm going to get you back. You think you've got me? And then you watch. He gets Tyson near the ropes. It's the first time you've ever seen Tyson's head go back. Watch now. Watch this right now. Watch. This one here. Now it's coming up now. Watch what happens now. Puts it to the throat. Bullies him. Watch. Bang, bang. Tyson's thinking, what the hell is going on here? And he won't let him go. Tyson's getting bullied.
And
He's getting bullied.
The worst thing there too, Tassie, is that Tyson by then would be exhausted, and he said, "What the hell am I going to do here? I'm under fire. I've punched myself out. I've got nothing left. What do I do now?"
And he knows he didn't do the hard work in training. Now, but he wish he did.
He would have done the hard work. That's an excuse.
Well,
of course, he's done
probably
hard
not
work.
as hard.
He's 24 years of age. He's a professional athlete. He's at the peak of his powers. You can't take away. Law of the eye. That's where it is. You know,
Evander's looking, thinking, there goes my multi-million-dollar payday.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So Tyson starts again, one punch over the top. It ain't going to work with a Buster Douglas there tonight. Simple as that. The Buster Douglas tonight, he means business. He's throwing shots with bad intentions.
I wonder
Look
if
at
there
that.
was a
Pulling him
rematch
back.
if
Pulling him back.
would have stayed in shape, not like Holyfield.
And watch Tyson when he does go down, covering the eye, setting up, bang, uppercut, ta-ta. There you go. Yep. You cannot take that away from Buster Douglas. And Tyson copped a massive long count too. He just couldn't get up.
The referee saying, Mike, count. come on.
No, you know, Mike's going, do you want me to put your mouth guard in?
He's a big Tyson fan, Peter is.
Yeah.
No, I just call it the way it is, Tassie. Tyson was my idol. I was devastated when he got beat. But are we fanboys here? We're calling it the way we see it.
No, I agree.
Look, the uppercut. He's trying to cover his eye. Bang. The uppercut does the damage. And this last one there is just good night Irene stuff.
Yeah.
Watch his head go back with the uppercut there. Bang.
Beautiful uppercut.
And this is good night Irene coming up now. Bang.
Well, I think it's probably just a classic case, I think, guys, of the bully got bullied. You know, he got called out. You know, and that's really what it all boiled down to. Sorry, Pete, go ahead before I put the next video on there.
No, I was going to say, look, Mike's one of the greats, and Mike's done that to many people across his whole life. He just met a guy that was better on him on the night, better prepared, more motivated, and executed a great game plan. Let's not take anything away from Buster Douglas. He was awesome on the night. The better man by a mile won that.
Well, let's have a quick listen to the new champion, what he had to say after the fight.
You're more animated than we've ever seen you, more focused than we've ever seen you, and you're crediting it to the fact that the death of your mother just what? Focused your mind what? You're already focused. No. Well, what surprised you from the get-go? What were you going to try to do from the get-go? That's what I did. Whip his ass. You know, I mean, you come to fight, I come to fight. I told you when you in the room, I said, it was time for James Jones to come out of the closet. But it seems you had I told you that I also had times where I had great fights and would come back with 2 or 3 round fights that was mediocre, you know, and that would leave a lot of doubt. I don't blame you guys. You guys going with the see, you understand? But I know, and my people know, that's what the real thing is all about. Every challenger for Mike Tyson says the same thing, but you did something in there. I told you to neutralize him.
So the new champion there, and very emotional there. There's a little bit more as it goes on, but very emotional when it came to his mum. But look, I think Pete, you've been his most staunch supporter through this episode. You just got to take your hat off to this guy. He fought the fight of his life when it mattered the most, and, you know, a very, very deserving winner.
He came in shape. You saw him when he was beaming out of the change rooms. He came in shape. He wanted to get some of Mike. And look, he wasn't intimidated. Mike, for a guy 5'10.5", has got a good shot. He's got a nice shot, but he's not George Foreman. So a guy like James Buster Douglas, 6'3", good bounce, decent power himself.
He's not Sonny Liston either. He's not Sonny Liston either.
Look, mate, I'm Sonny Liston for mine. 64 with Cassius Clay, putting ointment on the gloves and all that, and then didn't want to come out after the 6th round. That for mine, it didn't paint a good picture. Whether it was a sure shoulder or whatever, Liston was amazing. I actually watched a documentary on that, and they were trying to spike or Cassius Clay's drink, and the mafia were trying to intimidate him, and the mafia put a truckload of money on Liston. And, Cassius Clay's famous cry back then was, if you want to lose your money, bet on Sonny. And no one believed him. Yeah. And he came out there. He had to survive 2 rounds with no eyes. Yeah. Because Liston was putting ointment on his gloves.
Well, this was probably the fight most closest to that, I suppose, in comparison, isn't it? It was Clay Liston as far as the upset goes. Yeah.
Except the other guy goes on to be the greatest, and the other guy goes on to go on a hamburger diet, and actually be just a buffalo his next fight.
Well, they actually caught up a few weeks after the fight with Larry Merchant on HBO. This is a little bit of what they had to say.
Did you know you were in trouble in this fight? Was your corner alerting you to the fact that you were falling behind and that you needed to do something fierce and dramatic?
Well, I never think about that. I never have that in my mind. I think about being behind. It was a tough fight, and I had to come back and fight hard.
Don't you think it's a corner's job to say, listen, Mike, you're well behind and you got to step it up?
Yeah, they expressed that. I knew this another time I'll catch it up. I was doing my best to come on, but as you say, he was clashing heads. And I was trying to face him on the side, so it was very difficult for me to see him from my left side.
Your corner only had a problem after the 8th round. What was the sense of it there? How did they deal with it?
After the knockdown?
Yeah.
Well, they wrestled me down and questioned me to see if my faculties was in order. And after they found out that I was all right, then they went on and instructed me to continue fighting. They instructed me in a way to continue to fight.
Well, did they say, look, he's going to come out after you, you've got to buy time?
No, never. He came out after me every round. So it was, who knew where it was coming.
So you were going to find out real quick whether you could deal with him after the knockdown.
Right.
Mike, you've repeatedly stated you couldn't see out of that left eye. How much did it contribute, do you think, to the beating you finally took in the 9th and 10th rounds?
Well, regardless of my difference, one of them, of course, I had another one. That's all that mattered to me. Taking punches was nothing.
But you couldn't see out of that eye, and he was hitting you with right hand.
So my heart was beating. That's all that mattered. So I just kept fighting.
The charge is that you're fault for not bringing your professional guys that could push you.
What, bring somebody that comes in like a week before the fight and train you or something? That's ridiculous. So that's ridiculous. The people that I'm with, I'm very comfortable with. It's just that I had 37 fights, I had 37 good nights, and at the 38th, I had one bad night. There's no doubt in my mind, regardless of his decision, he's running around and run off with his mouth and he's going to fight, make me wait, or the manager makes me wait, he'll fight. Regardless of who he fights, I'm going to get my title back, regardless. If he fight wholesale, and hopefully I'm going to get it back from my wholesale, regardless.
Buster, we talked about Mike's conditioning, yet you were sick for a week and a half before the fight, and you're never famous for being in top condition. How did that affect you?
Well, it had no effect, I guess. I went out there and fought the best fight I could. Like I said, I signed the fight for the heavyweight championship.
Weren't you taking penicillin and other drugs?
I was taking penicillin and antihistamine and some mouthwash to gargle from my throat because I had inflamed my throat was swollen also. So I was a bit under the weather also.
Sounds like COVID, guys.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? But yeah, so first of all, I thought it was interesting they actually got them both on the same show. But and it was still obviously the Mike Tyson show because Buster Douglas barely got a word in. But it was interesting that Larry Merchant, Tassie, did actually pull him up on the whole corner situation. Really, because he copped a lot of criticism. Or the corner copped a lot of criticism, and mainly Mike Tyson copped a lot of criticism for actually bringing those guys in when he could have got a more experienced guy. So it was good of actually Larry Merchant to call him out on it, I thought.
Yeah, that was, I didn't know that happened. That was great. So I know Tyson obviously goes to jail and all that. Was Tyson in line for a rematch at all? Or did Holyfield always have the shot as a number one contender?
He was in line for it. Holyfield had to get the next fight because he was a mandatory challenger and he'd been sidestepped a lot, I think. Tyson obviously came back, as you know, Pete, and beat Henry Tillman and Alex Stewart in both first round knockouts, and then of course
before prison.
That's when he went to prison, and so the whole thing just never. And Douglas, for that matter, after the Holyfield fight, didn't fight for 6 years and came back and had a few wins and that here or there. But it's he was 50 or 60 pounds heavier back then. Ended up retiring in '99, I think it was, with a win, but. He, after that fight, he was just never the same. As I said, he was gone 6 years, and that was it. Never even had a shot at the big time. He fought Lou Savarese, I think it was, and got knocked out in the first round, and that was basically it. So that was in.
He was going to fight Roy Jones Jr.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Roy Jones Jr. Your dad, who wasn't even with Roy, but Roy begged him. Roy Senior begged him not to fight him. He said, "Look, he's too big. He's still, so." And then Roy finished up then later on fighting Ruiz for the title. But at that time, if you look back, Roy was going to fight Buster at his first fight at heavyweight. For some reason,
I really respect Mike Tyson for saying, I've got one eye. I still had one eye and I still had a beating heart.
Yeah.
That was class, and I respect that. There was no excuses. He took it on the chin, and he said, as he said, I had 38 good nights, I had one bad night. That's, as fans, let's not be tough. Rafa Nadal can go out and lose his next tennis match. He runs the Australian Open.
Yeah.
So where does that, let's not be hard on these fighters. So Tyson had a bad night, means zero. He can all, if you're looking back, he'll come back and do what he wants to do. But he went on then to fight Razor Ruddock, controversial stoppage in the 7th round where 40 people brawled. Then, of course, the rematch was when Azuma Nelson fought Jeff Fennick there, and he went 12 rounds with Razor Ruddock, and I thought that was one of Tyson's best performances.
And after
that,
he fell off, and he was just never the same.
Went to jail. Actually. Well, he went to jail. That was his last fight. He got
put that phone on silent.
I think Ruddock was, it was right. And then he went to jail, of course, and that was pretty much it. But Douglas, I mean, even for the next fight against Holyfield, he came back as 15 pounds heavier, so about 7 kilos heavier, So, and you talk about, I won't say laying down, but, he went down for Holyfield and was pretty much happy to take the count, I think. And I don't like saying that about a fighter, but he's just hard.
He gained 15 kilo or something. He gained 15 20
pounds,
kilo.
So about 7 kilos.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't in that.
Buster Douglas and Riddick Bowe have the same nutritionist.
Yeah, well, there you go. Maybe they should fire them both.
Douglas would have got minimum pay to fight Tyson, and then he cashes in to fight Holyfield. He's set for life. He wasn't one of these ambitious people. He was happy to be the heavyweight champion of the world, and hopefully he's still got his money.
Yeah. Well, just a quick question, guys, before we sign off. Tassie, if the rematch had to happen, let's say it was a year later or a year and a half later, who wins?
Well, given Douglas's performance against Holyfield and the way he played, I've got to say, I'll say Tyson gets the rematch.
Yeah, I think so too. What do you reckon, Pete?
I reckon Tyson in 5 or 6. I think he would have destroyed him.
Think 4 or 5 rounds. I think he would have.
I think that uppercut that we saw in the 8th round would have came in a lot earlier, and he would have. He would have been going after him. But
and the thing is with Douglas, as we said a few times during the episode, that was his crowning glory and would have been very, very hard to get back up for that fight, so for a rematch. But there it was. It's definitely a classic fight. Look back on it. We're a little bit past the anniversary. It was a couple of weeks ago, but hope you all enjoyed Tyson Douglas, revisiting it back in Tokyo in 1990, February 11th. So now next week, we've got big news, guys, because we've got our 4th member making a return, Tassie.
I got a phone call from him yesterday. I was very excited when I seen Mike Boombaye come up on my phone. And, mate, look, he's back. He had a great time. He likes Kenya the best, he told me, out of all the countries, which hasn't been on my to-do list, but I'll get there one day maybe. But Mike's back. He's refreshed. He got a new world champion, his 10th world champion that late in England.
Yeah, yep.
And Mike's good to go. Mike's good
Beautiful.
to go. And he just said to me, Tassie, thank God you beat Peter the last couple of times. I'm happy for you.
Well, we're going to get him on. Pete, we're going to get Mike to choose a classic fight for next week. We obviously don't know what it is yet, but he's been out for so long. We'll let him do it for next week, and that should then get us back on track for our round robin, because I think we've been a little bit out of kilter the last few weeks. But yeah, great to have him back. So guys, really appreciate you being on yet again. What a great fight this was, and yeah, look forward to having Mike on board next week.
Okay, thanks guys.
Lyndon.
See you guys.
On your plate.